This is a tale of 2 engine failures. It starts with a missing banjo bolt. I was having some troubles with an oil leak in my engine and ended up narrowing it down to a banjo bolt that needed to be replaced. I took the banjo bolt out, put it in a Ziploc baggie, and put it somewhere very, very safe, and then proceeded to order another one through a Buick diesel parts company. And a flaky diesel parts company. There's one place that sells Buick diesel parts. 2 weeks ago, I called them and I asked for this banjo fitting for the oil line, and they said they had it and it would arrive at the end of the week. Friday came and there was still no part. So I called on Monday, couldn't get a hold of them. Called on Tuesday and they said they would call me back. They never did. Woke up this morning, the day before I haul out, called them again, and they were like, oh yeah, it's back ordered. So we don't have it and you're not gonna have it either. And that, combined with a dash of apathy and a long history of underplanning, has us scrambling to find a replacement banjo bolt in less than 24 hours before our scheduled haul out. So the problem now is, the parts company couldn't tell us any specs on the bolt. It's really hard to find the specs online. We can't order one online because we need it by the end of the day today. And I don't have the old bolt. Once we did get underway the next day, the engine stopped spitting out water halfway to the yard, and we had to choose between risking our boat on the shore and destroying the engine.
So not wanting to be overly dramatic, but we were meant to be leaving tomorrow. I've been waiting for a Buick part, an engine part to turn up, which is just one little bolt which will allow our engine to run. They told us it was on back order, so maybe we should have been more proactive, but we weren't. So now, the day before we're trying to leave, we're trying to find the bolt part. So the problem with a banjo bolt is, it's not just a regular bolt, it's a bolt with a hole through the middle, and it also has 2 holes on either side so that the oil can come on into the bolt, flow through the bolt, and, you know, quite critical on the oil flow.
So I was able to find the bolt. They've incorrectly, it's actually 10 mil, not 12, but that's kind of what it looks like. That's the piece we need, 3 pounds if I was able to find it normally. This is the parts diagram of it from my engine manual. It's this guy, it just goes in here. This is a little oil line.
So yeah, just the day before we're trying to haul out on the dry dock, which is 4 miles away, we're going to try and get the engine running. It's put Holly in an excellent mood and she's really happy to be doing this.
Okay, I've got the width of
this is how we're measuring. We're putting the measuring tape in and then we're taking photos,
yeah,
double checking, triple checking.
Can't get your head in here, so you
can't get your head in, can't get the calipers in, but we're going to measure like this, and then we're going to measure with a bolt, and then we're going to try and kind of put the 2 together and check they line up, and then we're going to go for it.
I called my brother, aka Engine Guru. It was like, emergency, and it's 8:30 in the States PM, so I just caught him right in time and he kind of talked me through it. I had a lot of questions like, banjo bolts, are the holes always in the same place? Can you interchange them? And he said that a lot of times you can just go to an auto store because they're used in cars and they're all the same thing for the most part. So if this happens to you and you're in a bind, you don't necessarily need to go to the marine store. You can go to the auto store and get the same sort of thing. So we're just trying to figure out the threads. Oh, I also learned about thread pitch from Chris. So we figured out it's probably a 10 millimeter bolt, and he said it's probably either got a 1 or a 1.25 thread pitch. And the thread pitch is the amount that it screws in with every full turn. If it's 1, it screws in 1 millimeter. If it's 1.25, it screws in 1.25 mils. So we have to figure out what threads are so the threads match. So what we're gonna do is just buy 2 different size bolts. One that's 1 and one that's 1.25, and see which one works. Now we're just measuring it all up to try to get the right length. So we measure the threads, we measure the width of the circle bit that I just did, the crush washers, and then hopefully we can bring all that to an auto store and someone,
or a marine store or a diesel store,
any store,
until
someone will be nice
yes.
enough to help us. This is Operation Measure the length of the threaded bit in the engine. So Dan got this bolt that's smaller threads, and I'm just cutting little pieces of tape, and I'm gonna try to stick this in. It's so hard because it's the tiniest space ever. Push it in all the way and then put the tape right at the edge of the threads to mark how long it's going to be. With the very important part being to not get any tape inside of the engine, because then we have an even bigger problem. It's impossible to get my hands in here to tape. So what I've done is I put this in to measure it, and I looked at where the oil on the threads stopped, and I marked that with a piece of tape. So now I'm going to put it in again and see if I actually put the tape in the right place or not. This is take 2, the first time I put the tape up. And I counted 3 threads down, so I moved it, took a fresh piece of tape, moved it 3 threads down, and now I'm going to try it again. I'm going to see if I can get the GoPro in here.
I'm taking this long, skinny bolt and using it to basically sound the depth of the threaded portion of the engine so that I know what size banjo bolt to get, and then using the tape to mark it when it's pulled out and then checking it back against itself in the engine.
Alright, second measurement was a success, so now I'm going to see what this length is with my little calipers. 2.1 mil.
What?
Sorry, 2 centimeters, 1 millimeter. I don't know how metric works. 21 millimeters.
Yeah, okay.
So we're going off of this measurement, which is 9 millimeters wide. This is the bit that the bolt initially goes through. This is where the oil comes in. And then this measurement, which is 21 mils. So this is the 21 mils. This is the 9 mils. And then we also have to account for 2 crush washers. And then we have the length of the bolt. And then we just buy the 2 different thread pitches. And Chris told me that the holes are all in the same place, so you don't have to worry about that. So I think we're getting somewhere.
Okay, so we called ahead with the exact measurements and specifications that we want, and they confirmed they had the pieces. So we went out and we made the drive, and when we arrived, they didn't have the pieces, but we got some pieces, and we're gonna cross our fingers and hope that they work. I mean, we're only gambling with the engine. So it's not that big a deal.
It's they're a little bit shorter than what we were hoping for, but basically the threads go 21 mils into the engine, and they didn't have threads that were that long, but this is definitely enough threads. We chatted with them and they said it doesn't have to thread all the way to the back. This seems like it's enough threads. So we're starting with the 1.25 thread pitch guy, because it's a little bit longer, and this is the one we're hoping is going to work. So, oh, that's for that.
There you go.
It's got this little lip, and we were like, what's that for? But it's for the crush washer. Actually, I'm gonna just test it before I drop these.
We've got to the point, we've tried all the different metric sizes, all the different thread counts, and we've had absolutely no luck with this engine. Oh, that was quite shaky camera work here. We'll probably cut that bit out. We're not sure if it's metric. We got an imperial bolt, and the imperial bolt fit in, but it was wobbly, and we spoke to some people, and they were like, no, the bolt shouldn't be wobbly. We honestly tried everything, we've called everyone. So we traced the line back, we've looked at the engine diagram, and we found another of the exact same banjo bolt on the other side of the engine. So now what we're doing is the broken rule, and we're taking apart something that's not broken. We've traced that oil line, and we've got Holly deep in the bilge here, just happy as Larry. Honestly, I asked her what she wanted for her birthday, and she said another round of this. So she's just in there trying to wrench. Just wrenching.
Oh, it's
She's
on
just trying to wrench the bolt,
so
but it's
tight.
on so tight.
So we're here at the back of the engine. This is where the oil line goes into the engine. Same banjo bolt, so we're gonna take this guy off so that we at least know what part we're looking for. Dan just loosened this up, and I'm gonna take it out.
Strong, Danny. Danny strong.
You look like what's the guy in The Shining?
No idea.
Who the axes open the door and
I
he's
watch
like,
as much TV as you.
Johnny's here or something.
Hello, Poppet.
Yeah, sure. Oh, people are gonna love this. We're good at movies. Okay, I'm gonna take this off. I hate taking apart things on the engine.
But now we've already done it.
Yeah, true.
So.
Alright, here we go. Alright, an interesting development. So this is the banjo bolt from the back of the engine where the oil line goes in. These are the exact same threads and the exact same size as the new one that we bought. So we're trying to screw the original one from the back into the front, and it doesn't screw in all the way, which is really weird because the new one fits into the back threads and they're the same. So there's obviously something wrong with the threads in the engine, not the bolt, which is a worse problem than it was before. I'm wondering if it's that the threads are dirty inside of the engine, and I've had this problem before. So what I've done in the past is you screw it in as far as you can, hand tight, don't force it, screw it out, clean the threads, screw it again a little further, pull it out, clean the threads. So I've got this wire brush here. With the wire brush, you always want to make sure the metal on the brush is softer than the metal on the thing that you're cleaning. So in this case it's like coppery and I'm cleaning stainless, so the copper is not going to hurt the stainless. It's going in further and further each time. Probably can't pick it up on the camera, but there is a bunch of gunk in the threads, so I think we just need to clean them out. And
only 2 threads off now.
Yeah, only 2 threads off now, so I think it's starting to come. This is the carnage of the main cabin post-engine debacle. So Dan has run off to the store to get more crush washers for the back banjo bolt on the engine, because you're not supposed to reuse them. We could re-anneal them, but we decided that because we're in a place where we can actually get the parts that we're looking for, which is pretty rare, we're just going to get the right thing, get a bunch of spares, keep the old ones as extra spares. And it's always this thing, I'm so much in the habit of making do with what I have, is that I have to remind myself when I'm in a place like Townsville where I can get pretty much everything I want, that the right thing to do is get the right part and get spares of it, so that when I'm in a situation where I don't have the right parts, I have the right parts. Okay, Dan's back with the crush washers and we're just reassembling this dude. So he's doing the from the front bit and I'm coming into the troll hole to do the from the back bit. It's because I'm smaller, so I fit in easier. And before he does his light up completely, we're just gonna make sure. Oh. You know, I'm quite.
Have you got the bolt with you?
No. I thought it would be easier if you just passed it all through there, because it's such a mission to get in here.
What was that?
Nothing bad. Don't worry about it. Shut up. Nothing's wrong. Yeah, so we're just gonna make sure that the lead is right on this thing before we put it all back. Yeah, that looks good on my end.
Uh-oh, one sec.
What-oh. So here we have our new crushies, and they're just going to go into here. We're gonna tighten that up. Then the real scary part is seeing if the engine will start. Okay, everything is connected. Seacock is open. I'm kind of nervous. I don't think it's gonna start on the first try, but I have Dan on the cylinder valve, so we can use that to help start it. It's like when you're crank starting, you open it up. That helps the engine get running, and then you pop it closed and it should pop it on. I have had some new keys made, so I don't have another key fiasco. We're using the new key. Okay, try opening it.
Yeah, I shat myself when that first went.
Keep your hand on it because you're gonna close it in like 10 seconds
okay.
after I drive. I'll tell you when.
Yeah.
Close it. Nice. Now we check for water. Oh, that smells good. Okay, engine, we turned it on. It ran for a couple of minutes and then it started to smell terrible, so I panicked and turned it off. We tightened up one of the banjo fittings a bit and then had a whole conversation about what do we do. Finally, I was like, you know what, let's try turning it on one more time and see what happens. So we did, and it just smelled its normal amount of bad. That's cool. So we ran it for 20 minutes and now it's off, and I'm going to put away all of this. Blah. And all of this. And all of this. And then I tried putting it in gear because I just wanted to make sure it could do that. And okay, this is something that in my head I kind of knew this might happen, but I was hoping it wouldn't. I put it in reverse first because I was worried if I put it in forward I'd hit the front of the dock because I'm a bit close. And it just sounded horrible, and I think there's barnacles between the prop and the hull, so I immediately took it out of reverse because I don't know what is going on down there, but I definitely don't want something bad to happen with the prop or the hull. So I'm gonna have to go in this nasty ass water where people are like crocodiles and bull sharks. And no, they're like crocodiles and bull sharks, mate. And I'm with a scraper and I'm gonna have to clean the prop. And I also, while I'm at it, I'm gonna clean the space between the rudder and the boat because it's pretty crunchy with barnacles in there too. There are so many barnacles on the bottom of the boat, but they come off pretty easily. So I was taking long breaths between diving down on the prop because it's just been ages since I free dove and I'm by myself and I just wanted to take it easy. So the prop was actually the hardest part to get the barnacles off because it's all angled and there were barnacles above it, and then there were all these fish that would sort of loom out of the glooms as I was taking off the barnacles. That's what they eat. So I'd swim down in the murky water. I can only see about this far in front of my face, and I'd swim down and I'm like, crocodiles, sharks, and then I see this shape coming at me and I was like, oh, fish. But my heart rate probably wasn't helping my free diving. Today's the day of the morning. Today is the morning of the haul out. Dan's gone off to do some last minute errands with the truck and I'm kind of zenning on the deck, getting her all ready to leave the dock. There's a lot that needs to be done. She's still got double lines from the cyclone season, so I have to take those off, fill the waters, clean out the cockpits. It's just full of gunk from all of our projects, and then just kind of tidy things away and sea stow, take down the covers. So we tested the inflatable life jackets yesterday. We opened them up and Dan blew them up by hand instead of using the CO2 cartridges. We left them overnight and they don't hold air. We sort of don't have life jackets at the moment. It's one of the things we're gonna try to source, but they're pretty expensive if you get good ones that have harnesses in them. Because if I had to choose between a harness and a life jacket, I will 100% of the time choose a harness, because then you're attached to the boat and it doesn't matter how floaty your life jacket is. If you're not attached to the boat, you're gonna die. And at least a harness, you have a fighting chance. So I would see absolutely no reason to get a life jacket that doesn't have a harness, unless you're doing like coastal sailing with your friends in flat waters. Then like they can come around and pick you up. But for ocean sailing, dumb, no sense. And those ones are really expensive. So for the moment, no LJs. I guess I thought these were LJs that worked, but they're not. You just have to keep blowing into the little hose. So these are the West Marine life jackets, and they're inflated, but this is after a couple days. They're mostly not inflated anymore, so I'm just gonna deflate them and repack them to store them, even though they're not useful anymore. At least I have them on hand in case I get checked. So this is the cap. So you put this over the inflaty tube so that water doesn't get into it, but then it's got this little bit on it too. And if you stick this into here, it depresses these springs and it allows you to push the air out of it so that you can repack it. This is the CO2 cartridge. I mean, it's a bit corroded. It probably won't work, but I don't know, maybe it will. But it seems like the whole life jacket's pretty old. It's got all these like flaky things. So I don't think it's reliable anymore. So Dan and I are looking to replace them. This is the mess. So Andy's loaning us his shop vac. We have extension cords, we have all the painting stuff, ropes, sanders. You know, living on Gecko in a marina isn't really that great because she's such a small boat. There's no privacy. You can hear everything around you all the time. The cockpit is the living room, and that's where I sit and I see the beautiful views and I feel the breeze and it's really nice. But on the dock, I just don't get that. And so it just becomes a really hot, cramped living space, especially when you're trying to work and live at the same time. It's just not pleasant. So putting the sail on kind of reminded me of why I have this boat and why I'm sailing and the places that it's going to take me. And it just got me really excited. I've been hot and there's been a lot of projects. So I haven't been in like the happiest mood. It's more of a okay, I'm working mood, which is fine. It's like a neutral mood. But now I'm starting to get excited again. We just have this haul out. It's gonna be 4 days of pretty hard work. And then after that, there's little jobs to do. We want to provision while we're still borrowing the truck from Rich and Mel. Okay, we're getting ready to leave the dock. prepping the mainsail just in case we need it, or just in case we can use it with the beautiful new sail cover. But right now we don't have an anchor because Andy is regalvanizing and rust busting it, and it's not quite done yet. And the engine, as we know, is famously unreliable and has only just started for the first time in 3.5 months yesterday. So we don't have an emergency anchor, which is hilarious because I don't think we're going to be in the water deeper than 20 feet for this whole time, so it'd be perfect. So yeah, we do have a fortress, which is like an aluminum Danforth, and it is buried in the bottom of the Laz. Seems like a lot of work to get it out. So we're gonna have the mainsail ready to go just in case. So here's the deal. We have a little outgoing current with us to come out of this pass, but apparently a lot against us to get into the next one. So I've given us 3 hours to get there. So I was waiting for Dan to get back this morning because I was getting the boat ready and he was doing errands. We'd said we'd meet at 10:30. 10:25 I called him and I was like, where are you?
I was at the liquor store topping up on supplies because I think after a long hard day in the yard you need a nice cold beer. So I came back with 100. In case anyone wants to help, we'll pay in beer.
Dan just brought, he was like, we might need 2 dock carts. So we just kind of tossed it all down below and got underway, and now we can hear all the bottles just clanking around because it's really rolly right now. That sail. Oh,
there you go.
Oh. Ah. It almost went over. So about half an hour out, the engine stopped putting out water from it. So I ran below and I checked the through hull for the raw water cooling is teed off to this sink as well. So the first thing I did was pump the sink because if maybe the through hull was clogged, but the sink has plenty of water, which means that the through hull's not clogged. Then I checked the sea strainer. Sea strainer looks good. Can't check the impeller underway. That would just be ridiculous. So I don't know what it is. We don't have the right anchor. I grabbed out I want to call it albatross, the Fortress, but it's really muddy, and mud is so hard to anchor in anyway, and this is like a 5-pound aluminum anchor, so I doubt it would hold. So we're just gonna push the engine and try to get onto the little dock next to the travel lift, and we're a bit early, so we're gonna let the engine cool down and do some troubleshooting. I called the marina to see if we could just go directly into the slings, but they said the guys are having lunch, so worst case we just get towed around to the slings. It's so bad for it to run like this, but I'm worried that if we anchor it's not going to hold, and I'm worried that once we stop the engine it's not going to start again. And we don't have the dinghy because it's being fixed. We don't have the dinghy engine because that's being fixed with the dinghy to make sure they fit together. We don't have our proper anchor because that's being painted. So what we would do is anchor with a shitty anchor in a place where we'd probably drag with no engine. So I think the better option is to just try to get in. And Dan and I are just talking through every new turn that we make. We're like, what would we do if the engine stopped here? What would we do if the engine stopped here? To just kind of try to gauge it. So we're just trying to stay as far away from the downwind walls as we can so that we can drop the anchor and have some swing room. And this is what we're coming into. This is the narrowest part of it. It's pretty shallow too. It's 11 feet, so then super shallow on either end of this channel. Actually, you know what we could do is just run the boat aground.
Where?
I mean, like, if the option is going up on the break wall or running it aground.
Yeah, but if the engine dies, you're not going to get out there. If the engine dies, that's the way you're going. Break wall.
Yeah. I guess then get the sail up really quickly.
Into the break wall, which protects the wind. You just kind of, if we can make it into here, I think we can swim it.
Yeah, I mean...
Get the fins out.
Yeah. Basically, up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. Although, ironically, we do have 2 paddles.
2 paddles. They're almost 4 feet.
They're pretty long. These things, these are 9.
I think once we're in here we can swim, right?
Yeah, I think once we're in here, once there's no wind, we could drop the anchor and the weight of the chain would probably hold us.
I'm going this way because that's where we'd end up, right? We're not going to end up there. With any wind, we're going to get the wind behind us.
Yeah.
Just chuck the sail up.
Why not put the sail up at this point, you might ask? Well, we could have put the main up and it would have helped us slightly. There wasn't quite enough wind. There was just enough current to probably overpower whatever the wind would have done. And then as soon as we got behind the break wall, we would have lost the wind, and the boat would have been drifting with the current onto the break wall. So, and the engine doesn't like to run with the sails up, because if the engine is on its side even slightly, it makes this horrible squealing noise. So the sail would have been awesome if we were, say, going out to sea or going somewhere further afield, but for trying to get in to a place where the wind was then going to die and the current was going to take over, it just wasn't an option. So we had it good to go in case all hell broke loose, and that was our last bet. And then we turned away from the break wall and decided to try the anchor and call for help, but it wasn't really a viable solution for what we were going for.
We're gonna go on this dock, I think.
Yeah. Is now a good time to learn how to dock?
Maybe not. If you want to really quickly switch to a port side setup, I'll steer us in.
Okay. Going into neutral.
I'm not stopping this thing until we're almost on the dock.
I'll jump off with the bow line and you throw me the stern?
Yeah, I can jump off with the stern. I didn't really line this up very well. I could have had a really nice clear shot. The wind's going to be blowing us forward too pretty aggressively.
Okay, so you want the stern line on first?
It doesn't matter, just grab the middle when you go in or something. We're going to have a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
This is me in neutral. Okay. It's facing the wrong way. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Is it off?
It's off, but
I'm so bummed that I didn't get any footage of the smoke coming out of the engine, because it, like, Dan smelled it from the bow as soon as I even opened up the engine compartment. But I was just in, is there a fire on my boat mode? And my first thought was not to film it, but to remember where I put the fire extinguisher. Anyway, it was just like black, icky smoke that was coming out, and we left the engine compartment open to let it air out. And I went up and chatted with the office and told them that I wasn't going to be able to use the engine to get in the travel lift, and they said, yeah, no worries, we'll have our guys bring you to the travel lift using some lines. And then I went through this whole journey in my head where I was trying to figure out if I'd made the right decision to keep going with the engine, and it was sort of, in the moment, it was so clear to me that that was the right thing to do, and then once we stopped, I started to second guess myself. But really, when you break it down, I had two options. One was risk the boat, and it felt like there wasn't really a safe option for turning off the engine and feeling like the boat was secure. And the other one was to just risk an engine that I bought in New Zealand for 700 New Zealand dollars and get my boat safely onto the dock. If I'd had my anchor that I'm used to and that I trust, I would have just dropped that anchor, called the marina, and had them tow me in. If we'd had the dinghy with the dinghy engine, we could have put that in the water and towed the boat in. If there was more wind that was consistent, we would have put up the sail and sailed onto the dock. There's so many things that could have happened had we had those things, but we didn't. So I think ultimately, the way greater risk is my boat, and also that means that, mine and Dan's safety. If we're on the boat that's going up onto the break wall, chances are nothing's going to happen, but you never know. So when I put it into that perspective, I realized that risking an engine was the smartest thing that I could have done, and now all there was to do was wait to haul the boat out and check to see if there was any damage. Thanks for watching this week's video. Stay tuned for my next drop, and you'll see how the guys were able to get Gecko into the travel lift using only lines. And eventually in my haul out series, I will show you my troubleshooting of the engine and how I figured out what the problem was. Thank you so much to my patrons who are supporting me and helping make this trip possible. Thanks to everyone who donated money to my PayPal when I was hauled out in real time. That really helped pay for a lot of the haul outs. It ended up being way longer than 4 days. We were there for 2 weeks or something, and that added up pretty quickly, in addition to all the other things that I ended up having to buy for my boat. So I appreciate the donations for that. If you'd like to become a patron and gain access to exclusive patrons only videos, my Patreon is patreon.com/windhippie. And for one-time PayPal donations, my PayPal is paypal.me/windhippie. Thank you for your comments. I love reading them. And thank you, Tish, for helping me schedule these videos and remind me when I need to make another edit. And I will see you guys, patrons, next week with a snack, and YouTubers in another 2 weeks with another full-length episode.